Good morning, guys. It's me, 𝘱𝘭𝘏𝑎𝑐, and today I'm going to start my new series. I'm going to show you most of my games. New opening. The opening which I've been playing for many years, couple decades, since I was a child. The opening called Schliemann Gambit. That's the name actually, I would say, American name. In fact, the name in Europe, the name in world, it's different. It's called Jaenisch Gambit. Jaenisch was the great Russian player back to, I believe, 19th century. The guy be competing with those big names such as Petrov, Chigorin, and he invented a very interesting way to deal against Ruy Lopez. He invented move F5. For the first look, you can say move is crazy. It's completely out of positional rules. But if you look at the history, many openings, either side, black or white, been trying to attack center pawn with, let's say, side pawn. Let's say if you look at the King's Gambit, what's the idea of playing F4 in the second move? The idea to attack center pawn with your F pawn and grabbing the center with your two center pawns. There is a couple of gambits very similar by ideas as a Schliemann Gambit. We have a Latvian Gambit, we have King's Gambit, and we do have Schliemann/Jaenisch. I would say actually Jaenisch/Schliemann, because again, Schliemann was the guy who was following Jaenisch's idea. So F5. Again, since I started this new series, I'm going to show you many lines. I will try to cover my best with all these lines, making sure you guys understood all these, insiders. And the first I'm going to talk about probably one of the main roads how white dealing with Schliemann Gambit. It's move knight c3. Yeah, I have to also mention even today's in completely like computer century, some of the grandmasters, some of the top grandmasters actually playing Schliemann Gambit as well. Just to follow the games of Timur Radjabov, who is like a super grandmaster with over 2750 rating of FIDE. And time to time you could see in his repertoire, in his games, Schliemann Gambit appearing in his games. So it means Schliemann Gambit has some potential, has some strength deep inside. So again, today we're going to talk about one of the main roads, knight c3. Next time I'm going to discuss about move d5. I'll tell you what, my development, let's say the way how I start to play Schliemann Gambit. So at the beginning, I always played d5. I always played d5 because, when I was a child, I saw a couple interesting traps here. And I really like to play, to use those traps. Let's say when I was probably about level of, in American way, up to level 1800, I used to play this way and was very happy. In general, line goes this, Queen e2, let's say most popular move to do, right? And I remember once on ICC, even when I was already a grandmaster, I beat Nigel Short because, let's say this kind of traps, for instance, which is very common in these situations. Let's say knight a7, c6, knight takes c8, and boom, queen b4 check, and that's it. And suddenly white actually losing, because whatever they do, you take on b5, you trade the queens, and this guy trapped, and game is over. I mean, all these traps, very nice, very cool, but if white know how to deal with these traps, then in general, I'm not happy with type of situation which appear later. And again, I'm going to talk more detail about this in my next lectures. So about maybe 10 years ago, I have decided to switch the lines, maybe actually more than 10 years ago, and I have added to myself move knight f6. And I believe that move is way better than d5, and I believe that's supposed to be the main move. All right, so how things goes around here? Typically, white do this knight f6. Again, I have to tell you, they have to do either knight f6 or queen e2. So if they do knight f6, you take on a set by queen, castle, and you must remember the move knight d4. Knight d4, that's kind of key move in this line. So it looks like black king in trouble, but we play here bishop e7, and after queen e2, with idea to keep black king not to be developed, you first play c6, your second play here d5. Also I have to mention d6 here move also has to be considered, but d5 is main move. And when white plays b3, so it looks like next they will try to play bishop a3, and they will pin your bishop and you are in trouble. Black has famous trick to escape. And it's almost forcing white to accept draw proposal, because after this we're going to make perpetual check. So sometimes white tries to play here more risky. They might try to play here something like rook g1 move, and then you play rook a e8, and now they have a move here, this. But again, I have to tell you, this is risky because black typically having great compensation after queen takes f8. And that's the reason why I mentioned a move 11 d6, because you see, the reason why rook f8 doesn't work, because we have bishop a3 and attacking the rook on f8. And that's the reason why sometimes I do on move 11, I do d6 to shut down this a3 f8 diagonal. And since a bishop a3 move doesn't work, here pretty much is going to be draw, because white has to accept this. And after this checks, we're basically having a very simple draw. All right, so in my today lecture, I'm going to discuss about this line queen e2, d5. So I've been playing this position for many years. Yeah, once I remember a couple of years ago, I played against, at that time, international master. Now he's one of the strongest grandmasters in the US, Ruy Lopez. He surprised me by playing here knight d4. A very interesting move, very sharp, very funny, very interesting. So I think I have responded with move queen d6. I'm pretty much sure that's the only move to play here. In fact, black's doing okay. So main move still remains the same. It's d4, d takes e5. Well, I have to mention in these cases, capturing extra pawn on f6 very dangerous for white, and that's why most of the times white still play here e6. Another way to play from white side would be bishop takes c6, but in general, again, those positions are fine for black. e6, there is a couple ideas here. Let's play rook e8. Usually I prefer to take on e6 by bishop and kind of simplifying the game. I tried here as well move c5, interesting here, but looks like extension of my pawns maybe too early. So I would say black's supposed to stick with ideas of playing bishop e6 and knight d4, considering here to play moves such as queen d7 maybe. All right. Idea of having this, by the way, this very famous, kind of well-known situations when black create this kind of diamond type situations when queen and bishop and pawn kind of connecting here to controlling all these light squares. And in case if white will take on e6, then in general that's fine, because you can take either this way, and usually even this should be okay for black, because it's better endgame for white, but it's holdable. It's holdable because black has so much activity, and it's really hard for white would be here to convert the advantage. So in general it's fine. But most of the times I'm capturing here on e6 by rook. I tried also here to play bishop d7, which remains as a main move in theory, also possible way to play. I mean, you must have some kind of experience to try a few lines and try to understand which ones suit with your style in these cases. I just tell you, there is nothing harsh in this line for black, and most of the times my opponent choosing the better way, It's e6 and bishop f4. Yeah, I think the first time when I played this line it was maybe even 90s. All right, but my first, I would say, brutal loss here was against Brother Burnewell. I think we played at US Open when I played move here without even thinking. I did move this before many times. I played c6, and my opponent surprised me by capturing on e5 and sacrificing the piece on b5, which I refused to accept it because I knew there's some kind of line when I play here and kind of e7, queen e5 check. But I wasn't sure if this line is actually, okay for me. I knew it's kind of a drawish, but I wasn't sure exactly how to draw this position. In fact, when I put on the 𝘫𝑗 was saying, you know what, nothing to be worried about. It's actually almost perpetual check because black's playing here rook e8, and after queen e5 check, basically it's going to be some kind of perpetual draw. It's also hard for white to keep playing for a win since black always having this kind of connection of jumping on b6 or c7 and control all these important lines and recovering from this temporarily mess, and even eventually it could be better for black. So this is first time when I played this position, and I have said to play, I can actually play very badly. I thought, you know what, I'm playing, I think Burnewell was at that time maybe master, maybe even not, I'm not sure. And I choose to play a kind of sideline move, queen h4, and I had collapses because after queen h4, in general, my opponent played castle queen side, and now it's really bad to me because looks like I'm just down material here. And I tried to save this position after queen takes e6. But, it was nothing. I think it's just really better for white. In fact, I'm actually making a mistake. I think I played bishop e5 here first. I'm sorry. And then I played here. And then I played here, and I took on e6. And I was trying to hold these situations against my opponent, but I lost the game eventually. It's just a simple extra pawn. So, the next experience when I played my good friend and one of the best attackers in the US, maybe after Larry Christensen, I'm not sure, maybe even before. So my good friend Josh Friedel, I played him I think last year. So when Josh had repeated the same line, the same move bishop f4, I actually prepared some novelty. I ended this already with 𝘫𝑗, and I played here improved version of this line. I never went for this winning piece line. And I played queen d6, and I would strongly suggest, recommend this for black viewers, for people who will play this line as a black, to play this move, not c6, because this is I think way better. And after this, bishop takes e6, c6 now, and as you see, my famous idea of playing queen d7, staying away from the pin and proposing white take on e6. Remember this tip, playing this line for you more important to control f5 square than to give up bishop on e6. So you don't mind to give up your bishop on e6 for the knight, but do not lose control of f5 square and give that square away to your opponent. So queen d7, and my opponent played here simply rook fe1. Well, we discussed about many other moves to do, but in general, I'm not going to give you all these details because that will go for hours and hours. But in general, that's the tip, and I took it here on d3, and after capture on d3, I played here rook fe8. Again, making sure, let's say that could be typical mistake, for instance. He jumps on f5, and if you pin me, I have, let's say, g4. And probably in these situations, this guy here looks like completely arrested. So don't do that. And I played here first rook fe8. And now, basically, we have a good situations after c3. Well, it's really hard. White could try to play maybe rook e2 or stuff like that. But in general, it doesn't really make any difference because I played bishop f7. And now the difference is, in this case, when I had the situations, now I wouldn't mind anymore to deal with knight f5 because I thought this is a different case slightly. That including I could take on e1, play rook e8, trade as many rooks as possible, and maybe to add at some point move bishop f8. So I had experience already on this position, so I knew how to defend them, and I knew there is nothing to be worried about, and I had offered draw, which has been accepted by my opponent, Josh Friedel. So the other game also I want to show you, and I played in 2007 against another my good friend, Eugene Peterstein from US Championship. So I remember when I preparing against Eugene Peterstein, I still analyzed move c6 because I knew Eugene could be familiar with situation what's happening against Guneville. I played c6. I was going to go for this crazy line with knight e5. So Eugene played bishop b3 and kind of game transposed the situation which I described before, because we have this type of positions, which again I'm going to show you. Very similar as you see what's happening picture with my game against Friedel. Very similar here. And just to check the way how I defend those positions. So rook h e1. I still played here bishop f7, which again, as I told you, when you look on e8, you control the e file. You don't mind to pull back your bishop on f7. And here Eugene tried knight f5, typical. And he played g4. So now I'm starting my operation about just trading a few pieces. Rook e8. Well, I think the best move for white, which happened in the game, was rook e3. White trying to still win battle for e-file. But it's allowing me to improve my bishop on d7 and jumping on f8. And now it looks like white need to play queen d4 to kind of attack the pawns. And here I saw the path I'm going to take the game to this kind of endgame. And I was happy with the situation because I knew nothing to be worried about here. And after queen e4, I found the way how to activate my queen. And finally placing my pawns on the light squares. And this endgame, as you see, completely harmless for black. White tried to stay aggressive by playing queen f6, but in general it was nothing to be worried about. And after these couple checks, we had agreed for draw. So what we have here? We have here the first part of my series lecture of Schliemann Gambit. Again, guys, I'm going to try to show you all these insiders and make you believe that gambit, that line, it's absolutely playable. And I hope some of you will follow my steps and will play this line time to time. One thing to tell you, the line not designed to play consistent. It's really hard to play consistent this opening because white's still holding in most of the lines more preferable positions. And I would say you're kind of leaving to yourself less opportunity to fight for a win. But it's one of the good openings to play a surprising weapon. It's a really good opening line when you're trying to surprise your opponent and when he haven't expect from you to play this line. And as opening itself, as a quality of the openings, it's not that bad. Trust me, it's not that bad, and you can simply play that opening. So just analyze this with engine, some of the most important lines, and you'll be absolutely fine. And try to have a couple more things. Find the games of Rajabov, as I mentioned. I remember I used to be playing this line by British Grandmaster Spillman. Also, another tip would be for you, it's important. I think there is a book of Ivan Sokolov came up about Ruy Lopez, and in that book he actually covered very nicely chapter regarding Schliemann Gambit. Well, I guess that's it for now, and we'll talk about more about Schliemann Gambit in our next lectures. Well, thank you and have a great day.